Kane, welcome to Agile Perth, and thank you for coming and being a special guest for us tonight. Thank you also to our growing community in Perth, Denmark, Bris Vegas, and a special shout out to all our sketchnoters of all levels. Please grab your paper and pens and your 5-year-old confidence in your ability to draw so that we can record today's key points. Kane, welcome. The stage is yours. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Faye. My name's Kane, just so that you know. This is going to be a talk on Scrum and AI. When I first proposed this session to Faye, I said, we probably need about 2 hours to do it properly. And she said, no, you've got 45 minutes. So true story, by the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and do a really deep dive really quickly to give you an understanding of how AI can be used with Scrum. And, you know, quite honestly, it's, well, I find it fascinating. I think it's actually absolutely quite incredible. But anyway, you'll see as we go through. This is really the first part of a longer talk. As I said, I mean, originally I had intended 2 hours, but we'll talk about that as we get towards the end of this session. So let me tell you what I am going to try and do today. What I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and run you through all the way from the start right through to the very end of the creation of a product, or maybe not the very end, but at least to the point of writing some code. And I'm going to do that all through ChatGPT. So right from the very beginning, so from the point of view of creating a vision, maybe a summary of that vision, a product backlog written in the form of user stories with acceptance criteria, and then prioritize that product backlog and try and get some code out of it right at the very end. So that's really the goal. Half an hour is pretty aggressive to do it, and I think we should be able to do that with ChatGPT. I don't think it's going to be too much of a problem. Actually, before I go further, can I actually ask for a volunteer, someone to keep time perhaps? So is anyone willing to keep time? I just want to be able to time the session at various points to call out the time. And if someone is willing to volunteer, I would really appreciate it.
I'm happy to do that for you, Kane. What would you like?
Well, I'll tell you when to start the timer and I'll tell you when to finish the timer. And maybe I might call on you halfway through or at various points along the way.
Sure.
And then you can sort of give me an idea of where I'm currently at. That would be appreciated. If you have questions, I mean, as I said, I'm trying to get through a lot today. So if you have questions, feel free to add them to the chat. So feel free to post them in the chat. And what we'll do is right at the very end, once I've gotten through all the material, then we can talk about it. Sound good? Excellent. So let's get started. Actually, let me just share my screen. So let me just show you ChatGPT. You've probably already played with ChatGPT. And usually the way that people play with ChatGPT is they start out with a haiku. So, I mean, well, let's start right at the very beginning and then we'll jump into the deep end. But let me start by sharing my ChatGPT with you. This is, just so you know, this is ChatGPT 4. So, I could probably do the same thing with ChatGPT 3. ChatGPT 3 is the free version, but personally, I find that ChatGPT 4 generates better results. And because of that, I'm using the paid version of ChatGPT. I don't think it's terribly expensive. From memory, it's roughly about $20 a month or something along those lines, but fairly inexpensive, but pretty great. So let's try the very first statement. Just so that you know what I'm doing, I've got a notepad. I've run through this session a few times and I've got a notepad with all my prompts off screen, but what I'll do is I'll copy and paste it just to make it a little bit smoother, but I'll also read it out as I go along. So this very first prompt is to write a haiku about Scrum. And what's really nice is that ChatGPT comes back really quickly. The other thing that I find really impressive with the modern AI systems is that they are quite creative. I'm not sure if I could actually have written a haiku about Scrum, quite honestly. And so I think this is actually quite impressive. Not only that, it does get better because you can do more complex things. So how about this? How about we try and write a sonnet about the Perth Scrum Users Group session on Scrum and AI? And there you go. And, there is no way that I could have written a sonnet on that topic, and there's no way that I could have done that in that period of time. Not only that, I find it actually quite creative, quite honestly. There are some things about this that are really quite amazing. So, for example, the last two lines, this Perth session, like a beacon, does shine, merging human with machine in design. Quite a nice turn of phrase. I like that. I especially like that last line, merging human with machine in design. Anyway, so I find modern AI systems to be quite fascinating. Let's get started. Let's get started on the real meat of material. Let's say that we wanted to create a product, and let's say that we wanted to create a product. Let me keep it really simple, at least for a start. Let me just keep it really simple. And let's say that we wanted to do something that we're all familiar with. How about an iPhone app? So let me just paste my prompt. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to ask ChatGPT for some suggestions on ideas for a photo app that is conceptually simple, but also very engaging. You can put limits around that as well. I could have said 5 ideas, but by default, it tends to come back with 10. Not sure exactly why that is, but in this case, it's come back with 7. Let's take a look at what it's done or what it is suggesting. So a color challenge app, not a big one for me. I'm not so keen on colors. I suppose I am, but maybe not this one. How about a 1-minute photo app? This app gives users only 1 minute to take a photo after they open the challenge of the day. That could be an interesting idea. Photo scavenger hunt. Users get a list of items or themes to capture in their photos. That sounds pretty cool. Silhouette snap. This app focuses on creating beautiful silhouette photography. Guess the place. Oh, I like this one. Users upload photos of interesting places and others guess where that photo was taken. I like that one. Photo chain. Oh, here's a nice one too. A user starts by posting a photo and the next user has to post a photo that shares some element with the previous one. Nice, I like that. And the minimalist photo challenge. Users are encouraged to submit photos that adhere to minimalist principles. Maybe too simple for me. I like the photo chain. I like the guess the place. And I like, what was the other one? Oh, the 1-minute photo. Let me ask you, what appeals to you? How about we try and do a really quick poll? I don't know if that's possible. I can't see everyone personally. Can you help me out with this one, Faye? If I ask people to give me a thumbs up, are you able to see that?
Yes, we can do. We have the whole range of emojis from love hearts, thumbs up, thumbs down, celebration, clapping.
Cool. So let's give it a shot. Let's try the very first one, the 1-minute photo. Give me a thumbs up if you'd like to do the 1-minute photo, if that appeals to you.
Okay, I'm seeing about four of those came past on my screen. What about, let's see. So let's try another one.
The next one was the guess the place photo app. Give me a thumbs up if you would prefer the guess the place photo app.
That's getting a lot more votes.
Excellent. And the final one is the photo chain. So give me a thumbs up if you'd prefer the photo chain.
I think the second one is the winner there, Kane.
Cool. So that was the silhouette. Is that the one? Sorry, guess the place. It was guess the place. Cool. So let's do that. So let's say to ChatGPT, I like the guess the place app. Just so that you know, this is live, so things do go wrong sometimes. So if things do go wrong, bear with me. But let's try that. And so let's ask ChatGPT to provide a brief description. So please provide, how about a one-page summary? One-page summary of the essential features and functions of the app. Excellent. So a whole bunch of different ideas. Excellent. Interesting. One of the things that I do find really interesting is that a lot of the suggestions that come back from ChatGPT actually make a lot of sense. So there are some things here that I actually hadn't thought of when we originally talked about the Guest Place app. Hints and clues, that was something that's actually a really good idea. I hadn't really thought about that. I hadn't gone that deep myself. So I really like that. Photo uploads, of course, you need that. Guessing mechanism, yes, again, of course, you need that. Hints and clues, I hadn't thought of at all. Points and leaderboards, that could be great from a social sort of feedback point of view. And in social engagement point of view. Challenges and rewards, I'm neither here nor there. Social integration could be quite interesting. Educational content. So a lot of really, really good stuff. And a lot of stuff that I personally didn't anticipate. So let's go through and expand on that. So let's say that we wanted to create a product backlog from that brief one-page description. And let's also try and structure it as user stories. So let me give this a shot. I'm not sure if it's going to work or not, but let's say that's an excellent description. Just so that you know, ChatGPT does tend to work quite well with feedback. So if you provide ChatGPT with feedback, it does tend to work quite well. So what I'm doing here, the very first sentence that I've got here is providing that feedback. So this is an excellent description. Excellent is spelled wrong. Apologies. Create a list of everything that I need to be done or that needs to be done to create the app. Write each item in the form of a user story with the standard template of SA I want so that. And so here's the interesting thing. ChatGPT actually understands the template of a user story. I didn't really anticipate this when I first started playing with it, but it does seem to actually work. So it does actually seem to come back with very, very reasonable suggestions. So here we go. We've got a start of a product backlog, whole bunch of items here written as a I want so that. I'll let it continue for a bit, but let me just take a look at the very first few. As a user, I want to create a personal account using my email or social media. As a user, I want to upload photos easily. As a system administrator, I want to upload photos that can be automatically stripped of geotags. That's interesting. I didn't even think of that. Privacy concerns. As a user, I want to guess location. I want to receive hints. I want to see my ranking on various leaderboards. Excellent. So this is a good start, but this is actually a pretty poor product backlog. Typically, you can tell teams that are inexperienced with user stories because they always start the user stories with as a user or as a customer. And really, I want to use personas because personas tend to be far more meaningful. It adds far more context. Let me try and create 3 personas. Let me ask ChatGPT to create those personas for me. Maybe I'll provide some brief details just so that there can be some sort of structure to it. But let me try that. So this next prompt here this is great. So again, providing that feedback to ChatGPT. But I like using personas as my user stories. Can you help me generate 3 personas? A casual audience called Sue, a dedicated subscriber called Jack, and a professional tourist called Brock. Let me change that. How about a professional photographer? Called Brock. Actually, I might change that more. Let's say a casual audience called Faye, a dedicated subscriber called Kane, and a professional photographer called Brock. And let's give that a shot and let's see what that comes back with. Excellent. ChatGPT has given my age as 35. It's very kind, very, very kind. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So let me just scroll back up. Let's take a look at this in a little bit more detail. This is really, really nice. So these are actually pretty good user stories, especially for a first cut. I mean, of course, ChatGPT doesn't understand the real world context. But having said that, these are actually really quite nice. So the Faye, the casual audience, age 29, occupation graphic designer, interest travel, arts and crafts, casual gaming, enjoys easy to learn games that don't require long-term commitment. Interesting. Prefers using the app that are relaxing, often uses apps while commuting or during short breaks. And the goal is engage in light, entertaining activities, connect with an app that enhances her knowledge of the world in a fun and stress-free way. So that's a great casual audience. The dedicated subscriber, a data analyst, very analytical. Don't know why they decided to make me very analytical, but there we go. Interest, tech gadgets, puzzles, competitive gaming, traveling. Behavioral traits, engages deeply with apps, likes challenges and enjoys striving for achievements and badges, prefers apps that keep them engaged with fresh and regular content. And let's take a look at Brock, the professional photographer, age 40, professional photographer, of course, behavioral traits, seeks platforms to showcase high quality photos, enjoys competitions and accolades for his photograph skills, looks for opportunities to connect with other photographers. Some pretty decent personas. Of course, if you were in the real world, you'd want to embellish on these. You wouldn't sort of want to just take GPT's word for it. But having said that, it's not a bad start. Especially, how's the time going, Faye? How long have we been going?
It's 22 minutes past, so you're about 10 minutes, 12 minutes in.
10 minutes in, excellent. So 10, 12 minutes in, and we've got 3 personas. Okay, so let's take these personas and let's rewrite the product backlog. So, and let's say that to ChatGPT, let's rewrite the product backlog using the new personas. And here we go. And so here's the interesting thing. ChatGPT has stuck those personas in the right context, which I find quite amazing that it can actually do this. Only 15 items in the product backlog, but that's all right. So let's go back up. Let's take a look at the top. So as Faye, I want to create a simple account with my email or social media. That seems to be old-fashioned now. I'm starting to see all those, sign up with Google or sign up with Facebook sort of logins now. As Brock, I want to upload my high-quality photos. So we're talking about the quality of the photos. As Faye, I want the app to remove geotags from my uploaded photos automatically. As Kane, I want to guess locations of uploaded photos to earn points and climb up the leaderboards. Okay, so that's great. We've got the start of a product backlog. We've got 3 personas. We've written the product backlog, or ChatGPT has written the product backlog in terms of those personas. Let's get into a little bit more detail now. Let's perhaps rewrite this product backlog with some acceptance criteria. So let me just say that to ChatGPT. So let me just say, please add between 3 and 5 acceptance criteria for each user story. And here we go. We have a product backlog written as user stories with 3 personas. And now we have acceptance criteria as well. I've only seen 4 acceptance criteria as we've gone along. I haven't seen any more than that. Oh, the last one's only got 1. I think they've all got 4. Oh, a few variations, 3, 4. Excellent. So there's a bit of variability in that, which is quite nice. But let's, again, just go through this just really, really quickly, just so that I won't go into too much detail, but let's just take the first one, for example. So as Faye, I want to create a simple account using my email or social. Acceptance criteria include user can sign up using email or social. The restoration process should not exceed 3 steps from start to finish. New users receive a confirmation. The user is automatically logged in and directed to the main gameplay interface upon registration. So, I mean, all those kind of make sense in the context of that user story. Let's take a look at the next user story. As Brock, I want to upload high-quality photos. The acceptance criteria include support for high-resolution images up to 20 megapixels. That's huge, by the way, 20 megapixels. Definitely a high-quality photo. Photo upload interface should include a preview feature. Uploaded photos maintain their original quality. Users receive feedback on the uploaded success or instructions if adjustments are needed. And again, all of these acceptance criteria make sense in context of the user story. When I first started playing around with ChatGPT, there was no way that I could have imagined that it would do this, but it does. It does do this, and it does it really, really well. So personally, when I saw this, I was quite blown away because I honestly didn't think that an AI system could have that much understanding, but it does. But it gets better. So let's take that work and let's prioritize it. So let's let me just scroll to the bottom of that list, and let's say it's ChatGPT. Let's prioritize that work. And there we go. So excellent. And ChatGPT has also given us a reason why it's prioritized it in the way in which it's prioritized it. I wasn't expecting that. I've never seen that before. So that's a new new variation that ChatGPT has added to this particular session. But you know what? I don't care about all of them. I only really care about the very first one. So let me just ask ChatGPT to focus on the first item and then print it out. Okay, so the very first one is really the very first one that we've been talking about all along. So that hasn't really changed, which is the ability to create a very simple social account, a very simple account using my socials. Okay, so that's probably a really good place to start. Let's get into a little bit more detail with regard to that. So let's say that, for example, let's just ask ChatGPT if it would like to, or if it could generate an image for us, maybe a wireframe image. I'm not sure how this is going to go. Sometimes the results come back well, sometimes the results come back not so well. This is using DALL-E, by the way. So DALL-E is the image creation side of ChatGPT. And so what it's doing is ChatGPT-4 is calling DALL-E in the background. It's passing that information to DALL-E, and oh, here we go. We have a wireframe. Probably not a great wireframe, but it's a wireframe nonetheless. So it's a good starting point. Let's say that we want to make it simpler. So this is great, but let's make it simpler. And it's generating a new image for us. Nice. And let's try and generate some code. So let's say that we want to deal with that in user interface. I'm not sure in the real world if you would really want to do that or not. Of course, it would depend on what you're building. But let's just go for it. Let's just see if we can do it. Let's just see if we can get ChatGPT to generate us some HTML. I was previously doing this with, oh, here we go. That was quick. I was previously doing this with Swift, but I found that if I did it with Swift, It's generated a CCS file as well. Sorry, CSS file as well. I wasn't expecting that at all. I was previously doing this with Swift, so I was getting it to generate Swift, but I found that I couldn't actually compile it because I had quite a lot of things going on my machine, and bringing up Xcode and compiling Swift was not something that I was able to do. But I did find that if I generated HTML, I could actually check whether that was actually working or not. So let's try that. So I'm going to do something a little bit offline. I'm going to copy this code. And in the background, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a text editor. You might not be able to see this, at least not yet. So let me just paste it into a text editor and save it as a HTML file. And I'll just save it to my desktop. Let me try and find that file. Oh, here we go. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop it on top, and we'll see if it can. Oh, no, that's not what I wanted. It's uploaded it. Nope, that's not what I wanted. So let me try and open it in a new tab. And I'm not sure if I'm going to lose the screen or not, but let me just open it in a new tab, and maybe I can share the screen. Can you see that? Oh.
Oh, it is opening up now. You've got like the 8 icons there.
Oh, I know what's happened. Sorry. There we go. So just so you know,
Kane, now we see a login screen that says enter your email.
Absolutely. And so this is what's generated from the HTML. And just so that you know, it doesn't look great. Let's be honest. But I haven't got the CSS file. I could do that as well. Let's try that. Let's grab the CSS file. Recode. Let me just save that. Doing funny things with my screen. Sorry, it was just readjusting all my windows, which I didn't really appreciate. Not very helpful. But let me try and open this and see what happens. I don't know what you can see right now. Let me get back to you. Here we go. Let me try and refresh that screen. No, it's not finding the CSS file. So I'll have to stop there. But just so that you know, that HTML code, that ChatGPT, was functional HTML code. It just spat it out perfectly. There were no errors in it. There was no sort of reporting of any sort of problems with it. And it came out with the HTML. As I said, I haven't got the CSS file working. Take me a little bit to do it, but I can't be bothered right now. But yeah, that's the code. So, Faye, how long did it take for all that to happen?
That was about 25 minutes from start to finish, from writing a sonnet to creating stories, personas, images, writing code, and then having you compile it, like 25 minutes.
So fairly quick, and so I mean that example is pretty trivial, nothing terribly complex. Let me swap my sharing. So let me try and find the other tab, because there's a few other things that I'd like to show you with ChatGPT that's a little bit beyond what I've just shown you. So that product is actually a very, very straightforward example of what ChatGPT can do. So not terribly complex. And one of the objections that many people have with ChatGPT is that, okay, maybe for very, very simple issues and very, very simple examples, you can do that, but can it work in a more complex environment? So, and I think the answer is yes, clearly, absolutely it can. Now, with ChatGPT, the thing that's really important is the context in which you're having a conversation with ChatGPT. And the context tends to be quite important. So if you can change the context, or in other words, if you can add additional context, then you can change the conversation. And so here's the really interesting thing about ChatGPT 4. They will allow you to do that. And you can do that by uploading some different files. So if you take a look at ChatGPT, you can create your own version of ChatGPT. And it'll allow you to create different versions for a different context. And so the way to do that is to upload some files. And it'll accept all sorts of different files. So it'll accept text files, it'll accept PDFs, it'll take PDFs and it'll understand PDFs. And so if you were in a particular domain, let's say that you were in a very specific domain, let's say that perhaps you were a Scrum trainer, and you had access to material that might set the context, say, for example, things like the Scrum Guide, you could potentially create your own Scrum GPT, if you will. And so why not do it? And so that's exactly what I've done. So I've gone away and I've actually created a Scrum GPT. If you open up the full toolbar on ChatGPT, you'll see all sorts of stuff. So down the left-hand side here, you can see a whole bunch of different plugins that you can use. One of them is Scrum GPT. This is freely available, by the way. So if you go into ChatGPT, ChatGPT 4 in particular, and you look in plugins, you can find Scrum GPT. And so what I did was I took the Scrum Guide. I also took a number of different books that I had available as PDFs, and I uploaded them. And this is actually a really, really nice ChatGPT session, and it does actually understand Scrum to quite a large concept, quite a large degree. So it understands a lot of the principles about Scrum. So let me try and demonstrate that. So let's say that we want to talk about the concept of a product increment in Scrum. It's often a difficult concept for many people to understand. So you can do that. You can ask Scrum GPT the whole idea of the product increment, and it'll come back with a very formal sort of reasoning and understanding about product increments. I like this practical implications section. I've never seen that before. That's the first time I've seen that. Oh, interesting. And there's also mention about the EBM guide, evidence-based management guide from scrum.org, Scrum Studio references. Interesting. Nice. Okay. And so I won't go through the whole thing. I'll let you play with that in your own time. Here's another interesting command, and I'd encourage you to play with this one quite a lot. This tends to work really well. And that is to say to ChatGPT, explain like I'm 5. Because, I mean, we could read all of this and go through it in a lot of detail, but it really doesn't make a great deal of, it doesn't sort of gel immediately or quickly. When you say to ChatGPT, explain like I'm 5, what will happen is that it'll rephrase that, and it'll phrase it in a way that is much more explainable. In this case, they've used the example of building a castle with Lego. which I really like. Not only that, I mean, I think this is actually a fairly decent description about the product increment, but you could also talk about much more difficult concepts and topics. So, for example, Scrum is not a project management framework. Explain why this is. So that's a very sort of open-ended question, not very well defined at all, but we get back a sensible answer from ChatGPT. And had to think about it there. Bit of a pause. How am I doing for time, by the way, Faye?
Great. I think it's time to almost be taking some questions now. We've got some comments in the chat. How do you access Scrum GPT?
Freely available underneath ChatGPT 4. So if you're on ChatGPT 4, there is a section called, I think it's settings, and underneath settings there should be plugins. Can't quite remember actually. It's been a couple of weeks since I've.
You could ask ChatGPT. How do I add the plugin of Scrum GPT? So Scrum GPT, is that just, it's one word? Yep. Okay. Not available in the free tier.
No, correct. So for 3.5, it's not available. You can see which version of ChatGPT you're with, usually up here. So if you create a new discussion, you'll see right at the very top in the upper left-hand corner, there is ChatGPT 4, and you can choose which versions of ChatGPT you're using, whether it be ChatGPT 3.5, sorry, which is the free tier, ChatGPT 4, which is the paid version, or ChatGPT 4.0 or 4.0, I think. Omni is the name of it, which is the newest one, which was released early last week. I haven't had a chance to play with Omni, ChatGPT 4.0, but I've heard that it's absolutely fabulous. I've seen a couple of videos of it, and it looks absolutely quite amazing.
So have I. I heard that, Kane, you said that it passed the Turing test.
Yeah, actually ChatGPT 4, not ChatGPT 4.0, but ChatGPT 4 passed the Turing test. There was an article, academic article, and they asked people. They had a sample of, I think it was about 500 people, and they had them sit down and do ChatGPT sessions, and 56% of the people thought that ChatGPT 4 was human as opposed to mechanical or AI, and so it fooled 56% of the people. So over half of the people think that ChatGPT 4 is human.
Real. Amazing.
Yeah. Which is
questions here, Kane. People are curious to know why you are so polite to ChatGPT. Does your positive feedback to ChatGPT inspire it to greatness? So
I try to be polite to everyone. But here's the thing with ChatGPT. There are different ways of working with it. What I've shown you there is an approach that's known as chaining. So you chain one question after the other to get the end result, which is effectively what I've done throughout the entire session. The other way to work with ChatGPT is to use what's known as super prompts. In other words, try and compress everything into single prompt and have that single prompt generate everything. Now, I find that doing chaining is a far more effective way to work with ChatGPT. But if you do it a lot, what you'll find is you'll feel like you're interacting with a person. It does not feel like a machine. And because it feels like a person, I tend to treat it as such. It's actually really, I mean, it really does play with your mind for a while. So let me just say, before I go too far, before I run out of time, let me just say that that was really the very first part of what I wanted to show people. I wanted to show people how you can use these systems to actually generate some really, really decent product and also come up with a whole bunch of different ideas. And it does tend to work really, really well. I think a much more interesting, or at least for me, a much more interesting question is, what are the implications of this? Because I think that if you can't already see it, I think you'll see it very shortly. This has huge implications. There is huge implications for us in our industry, not only in our industry, also other industries, and potentially also as a society. And so I think really that's a far more interesting conversation. That was intended to be part of the 2-hour session that I talked about right at the very beginning. But if you're interested in having that conversation, and I can show you some of the trends that are unfolding at the moment, but if you're interested in having that discussion, let Faye know. Maybe we can do another AI session.
Sure. I think, yeah, there's so much interesting stuff. I'd love to see some thumbs up. Who uses ChatGPT at the moment? Great. I'm keen, like in the chat, are you prepared to share the kind of questions that you ask? I often say, according to the Scrum Guide, what are the roles and responsibilities of the product owner? And it just gives them to me in a lovely paragraph. And then I say things like, make it shorter or make it funnier.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's another one. If you're going for a job as a product owner, what you can say is, to ChatGPT, I'm preparing for an interview for a product owner job. Ask me some questions that are likely to come up. And you can literally use those words, and you can use ChatGPT to prepare for an interview if you choose to do so, or as a Scrum Master or product owner or whatever.
Nice. Do we have any more questions from the audience? Yes, Charlotte and I used it today to create a survey, and we will be sharing that survey with you later. I think it's also in the beginning. Use it to put a job description and ask for interview prep. Yep. I've used it to say, calculate the amount of protein in this recipe.
Just so that you know, the brief in the bio for this meetup was all done with ChatGPT. So I asked ChatGPT to write me a brief, and it was too long, so I said shorten it, and so it did. And here we go.
And then you can make it funnier. I've seen it to use to create position descriptions and interview questions for that position. Yes. Yesterday someone asked for dot points about why we should get a whiteboarding tool. Great for giving you ideas for retros or taking a boring retro and making it more interesting. Love it. Someone's used it to create test cases for testing a HR application. Yeah. So,
from a coding point of view, there's a real movement to create coding-specific GPTs or LLMs, large language models, that will generate code. Not only the test cases, but also the code itself. So you could ask ChatGPT to write the code. If there are any errors, so you create the test for it with ChatGPT, run it, and if it fails the test, you can get ChatGPT to correct itself.
And there's a classic in there. Ask it to help you write a prompt.
Yeah. That's right.